It's 105.5 WDHA here on the Morning Jolt. He has been called the patron saint of stoners. Tommy Chong, good morning and welcome to WDHA here in New Jersey.
Well, my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. The first ever 420 Expo, Jersey's first consumer cannabis convention, coming to the NJ Expo Center in Edison, September 16th, 17th, and 18th. And your guest host for the festivities will be Tommy. Tommy, you have long been an advocate of cannabis use. And on your website, you mentioned that you've been saved. You feel that cannabis saved your life not once, but twice. Tell our listeners about that.
Oh, wow, for sure. I when I was imprisoned, I got off cannabis for was pre-trial probation, which you can't do anything illegal, in your system. And then when I got out of jail, I was on probation for a year. Again, if you violate any of the rules, you go back to jail. So I quit smoking and indulging in anything THC for almost 3 years, in which time I contacted prostate cancer. And so when I got the prostate cancer, they gave me the same song and dance they give all the old prostate guys, Oh, you'll probably die of something else before this kills you. It's a slow move, and that's all BS, by the way. There's no such thing as a nice cancer. You know, you get anything, and I recommend anybody. You got cancer, start treating to get rid of it. Not to live with it. You get rid of it. And so, luckily, and I say that kind of facetiously, I got rectal cancer. When they were examining me for prostate cancer, they took a biopsy, which is a no-no again. If you think you got cancer, don't worry about the biopsy. Just start treating it, because this is a biopsy takes a sample of your body and test it. But taking that sample, it tends to spread the cancer around the body, and I think that's how I got prostate. I mean rectal. Now, when you get rectal, it's a tumor, and and there again, that's not a nice cancer to have. So I had to get operated on. Luckily enough, we are friends with some very, very cool, smart doctors, plastic surgeons, actually. The one friend of ours, Dr. John Joseph. He helped us do the research. First of all, he found out whether I had it or not, and I definitely had a tumor. And so then we found the best surgeon possible, and we got it removed it. And while I was getting it ready to remove it, they radiated the whole area, including the prostate. In fact, the radiologist, all the people there are big fans of mine. And so they went to that extra step, and they told me, while we were down there, we took care of the prostate too, so you're cool. And so, but I never got really into the pot thing until after the operation, because before I had a couple of these sort of like holistic eggheads, that come around and saying, oh, you don't need anything, just do just do pot, just do Rick Simpson oil or whatever. Again, no, cancer is cancer. There's no magic cure. And so, although there's been some miraculous healings, but all in all, if you're like me, you take the doctor route, in which I did. And so I had the operation. Then I went on a very high CBD injections. I was getting CBD injections. Again, everything was serendipity. Everything just turned up at the right time. This ex-medic, a friend of mine, he was into injecting the CBD, and he's the only one. Chris is the name. Anyway, so I did CBD injections, and then I went back smoking because I was off probation and everything else. And so then I started not so much smoking as much as I was injecting the CBD and doing oral CBD. But anyway, long story short, I never got on opioids ever. Even in the hospital when I had the operation, they had me hooked up to a machine. If I hit a button, then I could get all the opioids I needed. Well, I wore that button out because I wanted to get my money's worth, and but as soon as I got out, man, that was the end of that. And so I came back a lot sooner than people thought, especially at my age, to the point where like all the treatments ended, except the CBD. I kept doing CBDs, not injections anymore, but now I do CBD orally. In fact, I sell Nice Dreams and Good Vibes CBD tonics, and we're doing incredibly well with it. But it's what I found out in my personal experiences, that and by listening to the odd podcast and that about health, I found out that the most important thing we can do for our bodies is sleep. That's when the body goes to work. The night shift comes on and takes, and cleans out areas, like cleans the plaque from the brain. But you need sleep in order for the night shift to work. Yeah, and so my CBD helps you sleep, and that's so important. Sleep is so important, regardless of what you do. That is the biggest problem. That's what happened to Michael Jackson, lack of sleep. That's why he was doing the drugs he was doing, because he would get so wired, doing his show and everything else, that he couldn't sleep. His mind was too active. And so that's why he got into the heavy drugs, which killed him. Because that's the other thing too, the downers, like the heroin and fentanyl and all that. What they do, they trick the body into they bypass the warning systems of the body, and in other words, they put everything to sleep. And so your body has no, your body forgets to breathe. Your body doesn't know how to breathe. It doesn't activate the breathing muscles. Or you might regurgitate whatever you have and then choke on that, because your body is the nerves. They're sleeping. Everybody is sleeping, and so you die. And so my thing is, not my mantra is now, try not to do anything that affects the body, natural thing. But if you have to, make sure that you do it. Like a CBD is very healthy because it doesn't stop anything; it just helps everything. You see, and I took a drug education course in prison. By the way, it was mandated. I had to take a drug thing, and it was my favorite thing to do. We'd watch movies and everything else, and I learned a lot about the dangers of alcohol that people, every day, including. I was going to say my wife. She has her glass of wine once in a while, but even her, she's cut down her intake quite a bit, and I think I had an influence on it. Because the trouble with alcohol, again, it basically is a poison. And so what you're doing when the high you're getting off of alcohol is almost the same high you get off adrenaline, you know, like that's why people gamble, because they get this adrenaline high. And what happens with adrenaline high is that it's a fight or flight thing, your body. So if you're in danger, your body will pump full of painkillers, that you can't feel pain, or you can do incredible feats of strength because there's that pain thing has been removed. And that's dangerous if you're playing around with it. If you need it, okay, that's going to happen anyway. But if you're just playing around with it for the high, then you're really messing with it, especially with alcohol. Because what happened with alcohol, well, this is what I was taught. When you Back in the day when they used ether was, and that's why you always had a what do you call it? A nurse monitoring your every heartbeat because you're under ether, and what ether does is takes you to the brink of death. That's why they can cut off your leg or whatever, and you don't feel anything because you're so close to death. Your body doesn't feel anything. There's no warning systems. They all been deactivated, and so when you mess with these things for recreation purposes, you are really playing Russian roulette with your life, as Prince found out, as Michael Jackson found out, Jimi Hendrix found out. These are all people. They had no intentions of dying. They're having so much life and so much fun in their life. They're at the top of the game, but they couldn't get sleep because of the drugs or the adrenaline or whatever they were doing. And so then they went for the heavy drugs to help them, to help them sleep. You've heard that, like alcohol relaxes me.
Sure.
Yeah, it relaxes you. Yeah, because it's almost like the first stage of death. So when you know these things, and I learned these things, and I always I got turned on to bodybuilding real early in my career, thanks to the bouncers at the dances that I play. I hung with them, and they're all big, healthy guys, and they were the ones that had me quit smoking cigarettes and had me going to the gym, and then eventually quit drinking. And the only thing they would do is weed. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, the only thing he would put in his body, Mr. Better, 7-time Mr. Olympia, was a joint. Was a marijuana cigarette. So when I found, now I know all that information. I become like the pot guru of the country and the world, actually. Well, now I can, and I always wanted to lead by example. It's one thing to tell somebody something, like for instance, my bodybuilding. I've got sons now, that are trying to catch up to me. you know, you know, that's one thing. They look at me and they, oh, okay, dad had something right. He was right. Because I'm looking at 90 pretty soon. I'm not that far away. And I'm 84, and I'm still, for part of my routine this morning, there's a hill beside my house. My doctor told me I need more cardio because I quit dancing as much as I used to, and so now I trek up this hill, and I'm really conscious of my body and my ability to do things, because when you get a certain age, the trick is just keep moving. Just move, and then your body goes, oh, we're still working here.
Tommy Chong is my guest here at 105.5 WDHA. He'll be at the 420 Expo on the weekend of September 16th, 17th, and 18th in Edison at the NJ Expo Center. You mentioned Michael Jackson, and you mentioned music, and I'd forgotten that you had done a lot of music earlier in your career, and the Jackson 5 opened for your band, in the mid 60s in Chicago. What was that like?
67. Well, it was incredible because no one knew who they were. It was Jerry Butler was headlining, and there was Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers, my group. and this new group called Jackson 5 plus Johnny. And what happened? They had won a high school contest, and so the prize was they get to open for at the Regal Theater in Chicago. Well, we shared the dressing room, and it was so cute because this little guy had haul a Coke crate over to stand on so he could stand up to the mirror, and then he's got to and Michael was incredible. He was fully grown when he was 8, 9 years old. He was a man, and he dressed like it. He acted like it. He acted like an adult. And the older he got, the more childlike he became. Until when he died, he was almost like a 2-year-old.
How
Yeah.
much a part of your life is music still these days, Tommy?
Oh, it's a good percentage, because the one thing about old musicians, uh, it's like scratching your butt.
I've never quite heard it put that way before.
You do it out of habit, you do it out of necessity, and you do it because it's the only thing you know how to do. And, like no matter what happens in the comedy world, when Cheech and I started doing comedy, I always brought my guitar and amp everywhere we went because it was like well, if the crowd got too unruly or whatever, I could always crank up the amplifier and the amp and throw some blues at them. So it's still a big part of my life. I was lucky. I wasn't talented enough to take me down that path, you know. Had I been, I would have been like the rest of the old guys. But luckily, I got turned on to acting, and that was really where I belong, on the stage, acting, comedies. But I can do serious too. But with Cheech, when I found Cheech, man, because the Cheech and Chong is ordained. My whole life has been ordained, and when I say that, I know right from my earliest memories, I knew that there was something leading me to do what I've done, because there's no way. I mean, I've met with the most famous people and had intimate times with them. The Jackson Five is a good example. I helped them. I was the only white guy they knew, or the near white guy they knew, so that when they had the Motown contract, they brought the contract to me.
That's
Because
wild.
yeah, because I look like a Jewish manager. I had the glasses, and they handed me the contract. What do you think? It's a 7-year contract, and I knew Barry Gordy. I mean, Barry Gordy discovered us, and that's why we literally brought them the Jackson Five. It was almost like repaying the favor, for Barry signing us, and we said, okay, well, here's the Jackson Five, man. Here's the present, and yeah, yeah, my life has been yeah. It well, I'm when I went to jail, I turned the event into a spiritual retreat, literally, because when I got there, I was at first I was discombobulated. All of a sudden, I'm in the Palisades, and next minute I'm in a jail cell. In a dormitory with 200 men making all these men noises at night, and and I started I started getting a little panicky, and then all of a sudden I felt this warmth come over me, and it was God, basically. It was the spiritual my spiritual angels saying, "You're supposed to be here. Relax, enjoy it." And so I did. I turned everything into a spiritual retreat, and I took advantage of it, man, because the truth is prison is where you go to find God, you know, and you can go to any prison in the world and you'll find God. And because you know the quiet guy that no one ever he forgets that he's there. The reason he is what he is and calm as he is because he's got God with him. And we all have a God app, by the way. But prison, really, you really activate it when you're in prison. You know, that's when that, because that's all you got. You don't have anything else.
Your celebrity host for the weekend at the 420 Expo, September 16th, 17th, 18th, at the NJ Expo Center in Edison is the one and only Tommy Chong. You can get your tickets and information at 420expo.com. And that's the numbers 420-420-420expo.com. Tommy, thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful chatting with you.
Well, thank you. You mean it's been wonderful listening to me, but thank you very much. I loved it.
Tommy, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, brother.
All right, we'll see you here in New Jersey.
Okay, see you in New Jersey.
Bye-bye.